Christmases be white.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten.
Just page 53.
Turn it off. Fantastic. In the event of councillors, in the event of emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given, the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. There's no apologies, everyone's here. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting that you ensure you speak into a microphone, you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administration purposes. I'd like to call on Councillor Evans, who would like to do the acknowledgement of country.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the people of the Wiradjuri Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend those respects to Aboriginal people of Orange and surrounds and Aboriginal people here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Would anyone like to declare an interest? Councillor Kinghorn.
Yes, thank you. I would like to declare a pecuniary interest in item 5.3, DA 236/2023-135 Astle Drive, as my husband has done work for Orange City Council on this site.
Councillor Kinghorn. Councillor Greenhalgh.
Item 6.1 in the closed agenda, sale of 22 Elwyn Drive, as they are a sponsor of the Junior Football Club, of which I am secretary.
Any others? No others. Mr. Cunningham's not here for our opening prayer. We'll move on. Late item, councillors. There's a late item. We need a resolution to permit that be heard in the closed section of council. Can I have a move? Moved by Councillor Floyd, second by Councillor Duffy. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, before we go on, Councillor Duffy wants to make a presentation.
Just on the mic.
Into a microphone.
Tipperary, and we discussed having a council friendship relationship with them, and he was most excited about it because he'd done his homework, and the mayor's up there, or Kahilok they call him over there, is Ger Darcy, which is short for Jerry, and they have 40 councillors on their council, so you can imagine the Irish background they have. They get through their council's meetings fairly quickly. And he did a lot of homework on our council area here, especially on the surrounds of councils, and especially it's a rural council as well, and the same type of industry over there as well. And they gave us some gifts to bring home, as to give this council here, as to help start the friendship relationship with those, because councillors, we have an arrangement. Well, we have in our city here, we have the second most population with Irish heritage to anywhere in Australia to the Irish, and it's given simply because of our ancestors, the Daltons and all those people that travelled here from there. Also, while I'm here, I'll leave that matter in the mayor's hands, because in the next month or so he can write a letter off to county council over there and address some issues that probably need addressing. But I also want to mention that our committee has also spoken about the Ukraine situation. We're still waiting on some information to come back from that, and that's through our senior staff there. So I want to mention while I'm here, Mr Mayor, is the banner behind you. You might remember we set up a banner committee, and behind you there is Timmy Cutcliffe, who was killed in Vietnam. And they're the banners that are going to go up and down Summer Street. 40 of them. They're going to be numbered, the banners. And those who are lucky enough to have met Tim, I met Tim when he was young. I went to school with his younger sister and his older brothers who were in my brother's classes. And Tim's father is Reg Cutcliffe, who was a former mayor of this council. And I must praise the RSL for their input, what we had here, but I also want to extend through you, Mr. Acting CEO, that the staff have been absolutely magnificent, from Natasha to Tony to everyone, putting all the information together, what is absolutely needed. But we hope to give a lot of publicity to that, because when they come up, we want to find people who may have better photos and some input to when we have the launch. We've sent a recommendation off to, or request to, not the Shadow Minister, the Assistant Minister, Matt Thistlethwaite for Defence and Veteran Affairs, to come and have a launch here in March for when we put those banners up, and hopefully that will be successful. And from what I can gather, he is very keen to come up and do that. He has another couple of friends in this chamber. I won't mention their name because they go public with all these type of things. You know what I'm talking about, Mr. Mayor, don't you? But thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy.
Duffy. We might have to change his name to an ambassador of Orange.
Yeah.
Orange ambassador.
I'll move on to mayoral minutes. 2.1, Country Mayor Association, AGM November General Meeting.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment and a question just relating to the resolution that's on page 22 of our papers. I noted the one about just transition to a renewable energy future report. I think I understand what a lot of it's about. First comment, I guess, number 1.H, I'm a little troubled by the idea, it says ensure there's sufficient water for urban communities leading into the next drought. I absolutely agree with that, but the second part of that saying, and that doing that has priority over the energy transition effort. I think these are both, without taking away from water security at all, it's absolutely, as I know you talked about at the last meeting, absolutely critical. The energy transition is absolutely critical as well, that we need to be rolling out renewables. We know the coal power stations are going to go offline. We know climate change is happening. So I think we need to be really pushing on both of those areas. I understand there are concerns about things like the transmission infrastructure and the need for consultation in the energy side of things. So we need to get that right. But yeah, I think we need to get on with picking the right water security projects and doing the work on those, as well as getting the work done to make sure that we're rolling out renewables. And the other thing on the same page, I just had a question on point 4. There's a note about advice regarding wind farm projects in Forestry Corporation softwood forests. I'm wondering, is it possible to have that advice circulated? I don't know if
I'll take that on notice.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep, thank you. Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 2.3, OFA car parking. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Whitten. Are there any speakers? Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, I had a question for staff and maybe the mover. The question is, would free car parking in the OFA car park mean that those parking spots get filled early by retail staff and might stay there the whole day, and thus paradoxically decrease the number of car spots available? And that would be obviously against the spirit of what we've done before. I'd want to know if that's a concern, or if maybe it should be for a limited time, like 4 hours or 5 hours or something.
There is already 2 hours around the fence area, correct?
Mr. Mayor, they'd remain.
Yep.
So the 2 hour, through you, Mr. Chair, the 2 hour parking restriction would remain. It'd be free, as it is currently. The all day parking would also become free. So, but you wouldn't be able to park, obviously, and we'll still monitor the 2 hour parking to make sure there's turnover of vehicles.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with this, giving the free parking. I think it's something we've done before, actually, and also, but I think what we've just put the people in Lord's Place through, I think it's probably hopefully be well received.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Just in relation to what Councillor Peterson has said, when I was talking to the Lord's Place businesses about parking, they all said that that car park is full by 9 o'clock. I suspect that when it was free, there was people that were using it, so that is a valid concern. I also think that we've now trained some of those people to park in Mulder Street and walk, which is supposedly what we were trying to do with the changes in Lord's Place, and I think this will just confuse everybody, so I'm actually not going to support this.
Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to minutes of the 3.1, minutes of the Orange City Council meeting held on the 5th of December 2023. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Power. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Notices of motion. 4.1, Orange Aquatic Centre free entry. Councillor Witten's moving it and I'll be seconding it. Councillor Witten.
I'll move item 1, the option 1, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that.
And I'll reserve the right to speak.
Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make an amendment, if I could, to this, please. I would like to amend just the date for this to finish on up to and including January the 31st. And the reasons behind that is just because there's still school kids not at school yet, and I think we could utilise this extra bit of time so the kids can still go down to the pool.
Would you like to incorporate that into?
I'm happy to do that, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, yep, that'll be part of the motion. That's not an amendment. Councillor.
I second his amendment.
You don't need one.
Don't need one.
He moved an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Miletto.
Just a question to the acting CEO. I'm happy to support the amendment. Just wondering, would there be an impact on staffing issues? Do we have the adequate staff if we go that extra week? I know that we are struggling a bit at the moment, and obviously when we have children around pools, we need to be vigilant that we do have these staff that can supervise accordingly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, short answer. We do have efficient, experienced lifeguards.
No, for the extra week I'm talking about, there's no leave, extended leave, anything like that taken?
Not that I'm aware of any issues with that. Lots of our seasonal lifeguards attend university and then have worked there through school and then at uni, so they're still available through that period.
Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
I'm also not going to support this one. It's not popular, but I'm not here to be popular. I'm here to do what I think is right, and I think this is fiscally irresponsible. Just based on the original dates, it's $115,000, those costs of which would have to be rated and caught up for by the ratepayers. And that means there are people who aren't using the pool who will be paying for it. I would happily support days that were free to encourage people that couldn't go there, but the people who go there regularly are happy to pay. I don't think this is a good idea, so I won't be supporting it.
Councillor Kinghorn. Councillor Greenhalgh.
I'm happy to support the motion. I think in this tough economic climate and the heat and stuff that we're going to be going through for the summer period, I think this is a great gesture from our council to give back to the community where we can and, ease the purse pockets of, of the average family. I do take on board what Francis has said, and I understand that, but I think we should pick up in other ways so they'll have more money to spend at the canteen and so forth. So hopefully it will all balance out. But I think it's a good thing we can do to actually give back to the average family during this festive season.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll also be opposing this for similar reasons that Councillor Kinghorn's mentioned. Over $100,000. Again, I get the sentiment behind it, and as Councillor Kinghorn mentioned, having selected days as free would be a great thing. Then I would be happy to support. But over $100,000, yes, it might be short-term gain, but it's long-term pain, and we're going to have to make that up somehow.
Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support it. I think it's a great thing. It's something we've happened before. We've done this before also as well. We've given the people a free ride in the swimming pool. Also, years ago, as Councillor Whitten said at a previous meeting, it's been free when we were young for everyone. But I'm going to support it, as long as Councillor Whitten doesn't hit the airways between Broome to Bathurst to Moore to Tullamarine. I'll be quite happy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this motion due to the pressure of finance, due to the heat that we are copping in and around Australia, especially in Orange here, in the cool climate area. To see this here is just a opportunity to give back to our community. And sometimes we need to just sort of be a bit generous in this period of time, and to see this here. I definitely understand the costs. I definitely understand all those aspects. The area that I live in, there's a lot of children, and to see those ones there going down to the pools. We are under water restriction, so allowing them opportunity to go and be using this facilities. That's what we've done with the heat in relation to opening up areas of opportunity to utilise the air conditioning in our facilities of Orange City Council. I think this is just an opportunity just to give back. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Maletta.
Yeah, just a question to the acting CEO. Obviously, when anything's free, there's an opportunity, and people who normally can't afford to will take advantage of this. I'm just wondering, what is a safe number of people to use a pool?
It's through you, Mr. Chair. It typically runs to about 100 people per lifeguard. Quite often we have more lifeguards at the pool than that number, but that's sort of the minimum standard. So we have lifeguards monitoring every body of water. So you might have 3 lifeguards on duty looking at 2 people because they might move between bodies of water. So that's how we have to staff to ensure that we cover all the separate bodies of water at any given time. We have high usage, then we increase the number of lifeguards and we section off those areas. But they've all got areas. It's quite scientific around how they scan the pools and monitor it. Obviously, if it got too busy, then we'd have to temporarily stop people entering the pool, which we can manage as well. So it, just like any other venue becomes full, if it becomes full, then we would temporarily cease further admissions until people left.
So we monitor the amount of numbers which are coming in, I'm assuming?
Well, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and yeah, I'm happy to support this. This is in line with the kind of thinking I had in mind when I brought the heatwave motion a few months ago. That we're facing a summer that's going to be pretty extreme, if not unprecedented. So I think it's an important year for us to be thinking about what we're doing to give people places they can go. I've really appreciated. I've seen on council's social media that the comms team have started promoting the access to places like the library and the gallery, and it's great that they're free sites and they're places people can get into. So it's great that we've got that running, but I do think it's worthwhile making this available, and I think that goes to, while I can appreciate the concerns from Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor McDonald to picking certain days, like the problem is we don't know what the hot days are going to be, and maybe there's a way we can think about it in future summers about if it's forecast to be over a certain temperature, we make entry free as a matter of course, or something like that. I'm open to working out different things. I'd love to find ways to help more disadvantaged people, just like free parking is great, but I'd love it if we could make public transport free in some way instead, but that's beyond our control. So I think we can keep trying to find ways to do things better in future years, but for this summer that we're facing right now, when we've just come off the back of the first heat wave and we're expecting we're going to see some more, yeah, I'm happy to support this and see how it goes. I did have, it's not quite related to the motion, but if I can, I would ask a question through you relating to the Learn to Swim Centre design. Are we doing pop-up consultation at the pool during the summer?
Or else just
Closed pool.
we have plans down at the pool already,
Yep, great.
And an opportunity for people to respond to that.
Yep, which is
we hadn't planned any pop-ups as such, like a dedicated table, but we certainly could take the opportunity.
Yep,
to
no
do
worries. Yeah, just thinking if we're getting more people through, then it's a chance for us to say, hey, what do you think about the designs? Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly of many minds with this, but will support the motion. I spoke to the acting CEO earlier to see if there would be any leeway in maybe having it for a particular time of day or trying to rationalise who could come in, but it was all getting very complex. If it was just for kids, would that mean kids get dropped off at the pool and there's no adult with them, or kids would end up walking home or something like that? I suppose if we did ultimately vote and do this, it would be great to get the data about attendance and numbers and the like next year, and try to work out how we could rationalise it in future if it was particular days, particular temperatures, particular times, some way that we could do this thing without it costing such a big hit to the bottom line.
Madam Rising, Mr. Mayor. The same thing. Has the council ever canvassed the idea of running public transport to the lake, which is a free facility?
I'm not aware that we have, Councillor, but I can certainly double check that.
And it's unpatrolled.
Say again?
Patrolled. No lifeguards.
Oh, no.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak for this. I think it's a great initiative at this time of the year, and I know it's a fair amount of money, but we do spend money on other things as well, and I think making the pool accessible to everyone so they can go and have a dip like it used to be in the old days. I think it's a good thing, and I think the canteen will want to stock up, because if we get a lot of people there, they'll want to have plenty of food, because that's the other way we can make money back on this if people are going to spend lots of money at the canteen. So I am fully in favour of this. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I respect every councillor in this room's verdict or vote, and I do respect the fact that from a fiscal standpoint, there is a potential loss of revenue. It's not a cost. It's not going to cost us $100,000. It's a potential. Sure, there is fixed costs in wages, but they're always there. We are, after all, a community. Orange is a small city, but the reason that people come to Orange is because we do things differently. We make lifestyle decisions for people, and it has been a tough year for a lot of families, and certainly there would be a number of families and their children who, due to hardship, would probably never visit and have never visited the Orange Aquatic Centre. And this gives us, during the Christmas season and the summer and the school holidays, the opportunity to allow the community to use a facility that they own and pay for free. And as the Mayor said, not too far back well, it was last century actually, in the 70s. During my entire lifetime in Orange, the pool was free. And one of the things I do remember with fondness was the school holidays at summertime, where you got to meet or be with, students from other schools you'd never met. They lived in Orange, but you would meet them at the pool and create new friendships. And sure, you may have seen them on the sporting oval, but not every student plays sport. So, look, I think this is a small gesture of giving back to the community, allowing the families to have something for free. Nothing's for free, but they're getting access to a great facility that took a long time over the years put together, which some of those families and their children may never have seen. So I think it's a great thing for the community, Mr. Mayor. It comes at a cost, but at the end of the day, we own it. There's lots of facilities that ratepayers pay for in Orange but don't use, but the city benefits from them. And we're going to get a lot of visitors into the city, and I bet you when they come to Orange and they find out that they can use the pool for free, they're going to go home and ask their councillors probably to do the same thing. But thank you for your support, councils, and thank you to the staff for putting the notes together.
Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to, I better put my glasses on, 5.1, recommendations and resolutions from policy committees on page 53. Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Greenhouse, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any speakers?
Just a quick comment. In the previous meeting, we had the list of what things that were outstanding, Mr. Mayor, and I did note from a previous council it just never appeared or disappeared that when I was at cricket on Saturday at Max Stewart Oval, there was supposed to be an interpretive signage there saying what Max Stewart Oval was about, and nothing has been there. And I also had a chat to the Nublar Car Club as well, and they were looking at trying to get out to the helicopter pad, but I mean that's just been taken by Rotary. They also looking at having a statue of Max Stewart, sorry for that, any of his family listening, Max Stewart out around a Nublar track near the Gosling Creek. And I'm happy to take it on notice.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I know I've been talking to a lot with Nublar about the use of the old hangar, the air ambulance hangar that is used by all the community clubs for storage at the moment. That's included in the Landcom plan. I had a meeting on it just this afternoon just to follow up. So to remove the 7 or 8 community groups that use it and install Nublar in there for a short period of time and then have to remove them when the Landcom thing didn't seem to make a lot of sense. So we're working together on an alternative. The statue of Max Stewart was always to be led by the Nublar Club. That was the resolution. We would support them in that endeavour. And I know that the Nublar Club is also updating that signage that has been scratched out at Brabham there. So they're the three questions, I think.
Thank you. There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous.
The matter arising. Just a question through you, probably to the director. In terms of the infrastructure and the patching of roads, the site that's being currently patched out on Coronation Drive, and I'm happy for the director to take it on notice, on Coronation Drive out the front of PLC. Driven a lot of bad roads, but that patching job that's currently underway there is abysmal.
Finished yet?
No, I get that, but surely...
I drive on it every day.
Thank you for the question. Very relevant given the conditions. And we have the asphalt booked in for the 15th of January for that week. Okay. So they will be coming through, and all those patches that have their holding seal on them will be repatched if they need it, and then they'll also, as we go forward, I'll inspect it tomorrow as well. But I do know the asphalt patching, which will bring it up to level, is booked in for that week of the 15th of January.
Okay. And one more question. Now, when we do subdivisions, you do the testing on the surface to make sure that it's compliant and it's going to last. Do we do that on patching?
No, not on patching.
No, okay.
Could I ask a question to the director while he's there, Mr. Mayor?
Just a matter arising.
Just a matter arising, yeah.
Thank you.
On that Coronation Drive section near the PLC, Mr. Director, that has given us grief. All my time on council, is there a particular? Is it a soil issue under there, or is it because the buses turn into the PLC? Or
Buses.
is it the buses? Is it? Yeah, okay.
Bus drivers.
Just your opinion. And I know it's on notice. Like, it's on notice. Okay.
Thank you.
We have a lot of patching going on around the city at the moment, so all those patches will be filled on the 15th of January.
Yes, yeah, on the week of the 15th of January.
Yeah. And other roadworks that are planned, we might want to get some. What other roads you've got planned coming up?
We've just put a seal on Clergate Road, so that's now sealed right through. There are some sections that you'll see the curb and gutters missing, where in a couple of spots where we're still are negotiating with some services to be moved. And then we've also put a holding seal on a large section of Beasley Road. But I'll take it on notice and give a report on what we've got running through to the end of financial year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just ask a question. I notice here at 5.2, which I'm a supporter of,
We're not on 5.2 yet.
on Rainbow Festival. When is it going to occur?
It's already done. We've done that. We did that last meeting.
Yes, there's a report there, but do we have a date for it?
Oh, it was in March, wasn't it?
22nd, I forget, I can't remember. 22nd of March.
We'll come back with that. We'll come back with a proper date.
22nd, 23rd, 24th of March.
Thanks, councillors. I'll move on to item 5.2, which is minutes of the Australia Day Community Committee held on the 6th of December. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Power. Any speakers? Councillor Greenhalgh.
Just a matter arising. So there was in Councillor Duffy's original motion, it did actually state that the 150th celebration for Cook Park be held on the same day of Australia Day. It was noted at the Australia Day Committee meeting that the preference was for that to not take place, but that's not noted in the minutes of the meeting anywhere. I think we need to add that amendment in.
Just 2 seconds, councillors. Yeah, Councillor Maletta.
The matter arising. My understanding in that the committee would only make a recommendation to council for the council to approve whether or not we decide to have both celebrations on the same day. Or not.
Yeah, it's a council that decides that. Yeah.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, council would have to amend 2.32 to overturn the previous resolution to hold them together. It would be the mechanics if you wanted to.
Yep.
Committees don't determine, as you rightly say, committees don't return.
Any other speakers? So at this point in time, the 150th and the Australia Day are not on the same day, correct?
Yeah.
Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do support Councillor Green now because I'm on that committee too. The discussion was that we are for the Australia Day and that whatever decision that would have to come back to the chamber in relation to the 150th anniversary. So we as the committee wanted to just make sure that we were looking after Australia Day, but as in the point 2, that we would monitor the situation in relation to whether activities of bats and other stuff that may not.
So, Councillor Greenhouse, do you want to put an amendment saying to separate them?
I'm happy to do that with a date to be determined.
Date to be determined.
Yeah, a date to be determined.
Have a seconder?
If I may, just for process, Mr Mayor, this is the minutes of a committee.
Mm.
You can't amend it. We can't change it. This is just yeah.
It's a recommendation from a committee.
Hey, councillors.
Recommendation from the
Yeah.
a motion from a committee.
And I don't believe we were asking the Australia Day committee to run the 150th. I think it was just saying that we would hold both in the Cook Park on the same day.
That was what it was,
Yeah.
but the committee have come back and said they want to separate them.
But that's not in these minutes.
I know,
It's not in,
and
it's not in these
Exactly what I'm saying.
recommendations,
It wasn't noted in the minutes, so the minutes need to be amended before we move them.
Through you, Mr Chair, the recommendations are written by council staff based on the minutes of the committee. So the recommendations reflect the minutes of that meeting. But the recommendation is that we put to council is determined by staff. So we're able to amend the recommendation. So, for example, on occasion, the committee may have passed a certain matter, but our recommendation to council is not to adopt what the committee resolved for whatever reason. So that happens. So all we're doing here is saying these were the minutes. Recommendation to council. The recommendation to council is X. You can amend that to pick up the change in the 150th if you so wish. The mechanics permit it. If you don't want to, you don't. It's up to council, of course.
So from my understanding, what Councillor Greenhouse is saying, that this was discussed at the...
Absolutely, it was discussed.
In
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
not a recommendation that was passed at the meeting.
It should be noted in the minutes.
I think the last line says the remainder of the minutes be adopted by council. This is just the recommendation component of the meeting. That makes sense.
Doesn't even, it's not in the
There's nothing in there.
points.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhouse. Yes, it was definitely discussed in the Australia Day Committee, but as the resolution of council was to ask the Australia Day Committee in regards to where to hold the event. So the only, from the recommendation perspective, was on that motion, and it was just to ask the committee if they would want to continue to hold the event in Cook Park or to move it to Robinson Park, and hence why that's not in the minutes. But Councillor Greenhouse is absolutely right, it was discussed. And the committee made a view that they didn't want to hold both of the events at the same time. So why is it not in the minutes? Because the recommendation we had to put forward was part of the resolution that went to council, which only asked the Australia Day Committee to give their opinion on whether they'd like to actually hold the event for 2024.
So, Acting CEO, Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. Now I'm just quite confused
Me
about
too.
this. So was the problem with the committee that they thought that they would have to do extra work? Is that why they didn't want them together, or they just wanted it to be, the demarcation to be a bit more pronounced?
Are you happy for me to answer that, or would you like to get? Okay. So from the, sorry, Councillor Potter, do you want to answer that?
Are you right?
Okay. So from the committee, it wasn't about more work. They just saw it as two completely separate events. So Australia Day is a very specific event around our citizenship ceremony and the activities we run, and they just felt that there was completely two separate events.
That was detracting from Australia Day.
Yes.
That was the concern.
They just saw it, not that it was their concern, they just saw it was two separate events, that they couldn't, hold Australia Day and the 150th together. It just wouldn't work.
Park deserved its own recognition as well.
How do we go along this with?
I can answer that. We have a resolution of council, so the resolution has already been passed by council. The committee can't overrule the resolution of a council. We have to rescind it or change it. Or
Sure.
My comment, and I go back to item number 3.2, which says that the committee will continue to monitor. There's nothing to monitor. The council's resolution is it's at Cook Park.
Know that.
Yeah,
We're not
why
discussing
Why is
that.
0.2 there? The council itself makes the decision of where the actual event occurs. And that's why we sent it back to the committee to get some information from them.
Yeah, and they
not
come
for them
back-
to make a decision to say to move it.
They're not moving it.
Well, what's item 0.2 say?
Moving it. There's no the 0.2
At 3.2. Says they're going to continue to monitor it, and if need be, they'll shift it. They can't override council. As simple as that.
Resolved to have it at Cook.
No committee can
Mr.
override a
Mr.
council.
Acting CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in the recommendation 3.2 is the committee is asking council that to give them permission if the situation changes or they need to reassess it, that they have council's resolution to be able to change location from from Cook Park to Robinson Park if the situation changes and we can't hold that event at Cook Park. That's what they're saying.
I might just read the resolution if I can from the last meeting. So the resolution was that the Cook Park 150th celebrations be held in conjunction with Australia Day celebrations January 2024 if the Australia Day Committee recommends for the Australia Day celebration to remain at Cook Park. That was point one. Point two was that if the Australia Day celebration is not at Cook Park, Council resolved to have the 150th Cook Park celebration at Cook Park on an agreed date. So that was the resolution from the last meeting.
Up.
Got up. It was unanimous. I didn't commit for the Australia Day to be held at either venue. It was as read.
Pretty well much as that reads. They're both being held there on the same day, correct?
Oh, that's right.
That's what we all voted on.
That's right.
I want to know what the reason could be for it to be moved. What is actually going to happen on Australia Day? What's the makeup of what the event is going to be? Is it going to be a normal Australia Day committee meeting, which we've had for the last 10, 20, 30 years?
I understand this, Australia. Did you want to answer that, Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution came through, and our decision from the Australia Day Committee that we would, as what point 2 says, we would monitor the situation. But when it come to the 150-year celebration, that's not even in our charter. That had come through to us to ask us whether we, the Australia Day Committee, were going to commit to Cook Park or Robinson Park. We had then chosen that we will stay at Cook Park. But as far as for us as Australia Day Committee deciding whether the 150th anniversary would then coincide with that, that was not our decision to make. So.
Yeah, I still haven't received an answer to my question. Why is it there that we're going to move it?
We're monitoring.
What's the reasons behind it?
Because of the bats?
The original motion to council was due to the bats. I think that resolution at the last meeting foreshadowed the power to the committee to determine whether they'd like to have the event. It didn't determine whether it was at Cook Park or at Robinson Park. It gave them an opportunity to decide where they wanted to have it.
Park is it.
So Cook Park is it.
And I think that resolution, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
And the second part of that resolution comes into effect in that the 150th is held in conjunction.
And that's what I'm asking. I'm asking what's the guts of 3.2? Why is it going to be moved if it's going to move? If it's going to be moved because of the bats, tell me why.
Well, it's a matter for the committee to determine if they wanted to hold it at Cook
Well, sorry,
Park or
the
Robinson
council can override the committee.
Absolutely.
And we did that before. We said we wanted it at Cook Park. And we haven't gone back to the committee to say, oh, yeah, we give them an opportunity to make a comment.
Well,
But I'm not endorsing dot point number 2 at all.
but that resolution at the last meeting did in fact give the committee the right to recommend where the
They can recommend it.
celebrations-
They can recommend it. It's not up. It's up for council to make that decision.
100%.
And I'm not here to argue with the CEO.
100%.
You're not arguing.
Make a decision. But what I'm saying is that why are we going to move it? Is there going to be a band? Is there going to be the Scots band to lead the scouts in and those type of things? Is the brass band going to be there?
My understanding is the event would occur as it
As normal.
ordinarily does. It was simply a matter of venue.
It's going to be normal. Is it a normal Australia Day?
My understanding.
Okay, so can get.
So, councillors,
The alternative is if you could adopt the recommendation as written, foreshadow a motion, and the motion could be then for council to determine whether the 150th is held in conjunction or not. You could make it a separate matter. May not make it clean.
I'm happy to move a motion, Mr. Chairman. My motion is that that council have the Australia Day committee at Cook Park. Number 2, the Australia Day of the 150th anniversary be on a separate day, as I'm happy to accept the wishes of the committee, and the day is as normal. The bands and whatever the committee, so to speak. And I'm not going to accept any fact of what the bats are doing, whatever the case may be. There's hardly any up there.
okay, you've moved your motion. Is it? Can
Happy
we
to
move
second.
That?
Foreshadowed emotion.
It's foreshadow.
Foreshadowed emotion. You're happy to second that? We have to deal with this motion first. So if it gets defeated, shadowed. Okay. Councillors, do we know what's going on?
I do.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to move an amendment to the original motion, and that is to replace 3.3.2 or to modify it a bit so that it reads that council staff will continue to monitor the situation, and if anything changes to increase the risk of holding the event at Cook Park, council resolves that the CEO shall call an extraordinary meeting of council to consider moving Australia Day to Robertson Park as an alternative location. If I can get a seconder, I'll speak
Happy to
to
second.
it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I appreciate the feedback from the Australia Day Committee. I completely appreciate that they want to have the Australia Day activities at Cook Park, and I hope that that can proceed as planned. However, there is risk associated, and it's been noted, acknowledged by the committee. We have a flying fox colony there that needs to be managed. We don't know what the situation is going to be by January. The colony may have grown, the colony may have shrunk, it might be the same. We don't know what the conditions are going to be. In particular, I'd be concerned about things like heat wave conditions that are going to put the flying fox colony under heat stress, and that could then put them at elevated risk if they were then disturbed as well. My concern with having the Australia Day Committee, with all respect for our community committees and the fantastic work they do, having been involved in the NAIDOC committee, I know the amount of work those sort of community committees put into making fantastic events happen. I don't think they're the ones to assess those sorts of risks that we're talking about. And again, we've been informed about the potential penalties we could face if we were to breach our obligations under the Biodiversity Conservation Act. I think that is a governance issue. If we were to say we'll hand it off to a community committee and they'll make a decision, the reality is even if the councillors who are on that committee had concerns, they could get outvoted and community members could be deciding to expose council to risk of significant fines. So I think it needs to be set up. I hope we don't need to trigger it at all. I hope Australia Day can go ahead at Cook Park and that it can be managed. And I know we've had indications from the CEO previously that they're going to take appropriate steps to make sure we're not putting things at risk. And I'm assured by those things. But if the situation changes, I think it needs to be, again, council that is considering whether we need to make a change and relocate things. So that's why I've moved that amendment. Thanks. I couldn't support leaving it to a community committee to make that decision. Thanks.
Just a point of order of process. Just point of order of process, Mr. Mayor. Both the amendment and the foreshadowed recommendation are out of order for the simple reason, if I may, through you. The foreshadowed amendment the foreshadowed motion is going against a motion that was only passed at the last council, right? That motion says, right, and I'll have the CEO clarify, but basically what it's saying is that the 150th anniversary will be held at Cook Park. If the if the Australia Day Committee decide to have it at Cook Park, the 50th will be the same day. They're both separate items, right? We're not asking the committee to choose, right? I don't know how they got confused with that. It's just saying have it on the same day as the committee. If they decide to go to Robertson Park, the 150th will stay in Cook Park, right? So we're going to move a motion to override that motion, which is only 2 weeks old. You technically can't do that. Thirdly, the amendment that Councillor Mallard has just put is basically item 3.32. He's moving an amendment to say that the...
He's saying that the staff should be monitoring, not the
Well, that's what it
committee.
says. Oh, the committee. It's got the committee will continue to monitor.
Yeah, it's the staff.
And that if there's a risk that it should come...
The last meeting, the CEO made it very clear that he and the staff would monitor it. We left it in the CEO's hands. That this would be monitored and maintained and controlled and looked after by the staff, because the staff through Mr. Maunder have already as best they can guarantee that they're not going to let anything. They're not going to let this council. They're not going to endanger any community member in this city, nor are they going to put us in a position of liability. All of this has been discussed. We've got it. It's all put to bed, and there we're going around in circles again. So pretty much. 150th anniversary is going to go ahead on Australia Day.
Because that motion went through unanimous.
It's there. 2
weeks ago.
The other thing is that the staff have already committed to monitor the situation. The 150th will be run by whoever runs the 150th. Australia Day will be run by the Australia Day Committee. It's done and dusted. Am I correct, Mr. Acting CEO? Am I pretty much on par?
Very close, Councillor.
Thank you.
The second part of the resolution was if the Australia Day Committee recommends for Australia Day celebration to remain at Cook Park. So that's the only thing that could change.
Can I speak to the point of order?
So that was the resolution that was passed 2 weeks ago that said that they'd be held together if the Australia Day Committee recommended for the Australia Day celebration to remain at Cook Park. I think it has. And so then the resolution to hold them together stands, irrespective of the views of the committee on that matter.
Just wait. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Just responding to Councillor Whitten's the part of his point of order on my amendment. The other thing, to be clear, there were two parts of 3.32 that were being changed by my amendment. The first, that it's council staff monitoring, but the other is that if we need to consider if it's extreme enough that we need to consider a relocation, that should come to an extraordinary meeting of council rather than the Australia Day Community Committee making that resolution.
Doesn't the
CEO's already committed? He's doing it. It was in the last motion.
Nobody. We haven't made a resolution about where it's being held, but the CEO doesn't have authority to relocate if we make a decision that the Australia Day activities remain at Cook Park. So procedurally, I think we need it to come back, and it should be council making the decision.
The CEO could make a decision to postpone the event or cancel the event if there was a risk to the community within his delegations.
Yep.
So he has that power, same as any event at any time.
And council will be under the hands of the mayor and the CEO, because we won't come back to the meeting until February.
Unless there's an extraordinary council meeting called.
Yeah.
can only be called by councillors, not the CEO.
Yeah. Councillor Miletto.
Totally agree to an extent what the recommendation says, and we're voting on a recommendation here, 3.3.2. By leaving the word committee in there, that's what I have the problem with, and I agree with Councillor Mallard, because it doesn't matter what discussion we've had previously, we all accept it as a discussion and we would leave it in the hands of the CEO. So if that is the case, why are we then debating the word committee? Because
We've already said it was the staff,
we've already
Mr. CEO.
we've already said the CEO. So I agree with Councillor Mallard. If we don't change that word, well, then we're voting on the recommendation as it stands, which is totally against what we discussed at the last meeting. So I'm happy to put the vote on the amendment first and then see where we go from there.
So the amendment has two parts. That's got the extraordinary council meeting, and part one was
The council staff monitor the
CEO's already
situation.
got it. So it'd be the CEO.
So that's a statement of fact, but that's again amending it to reflect.
So we'd have to separate those to the amendments. So we'll do all those in series, whatever that word is. So we've got an amendment to the recommendation. Can you read out the the amendment, please?
So in two parts, that council staff instead of committee, so replace committee with council staff continue aimed is to increase the risk of holding the event at Cook Park. Council resolved to give the committee permission, so you'll have to change that bit as well. So you'd have to change that to give the CEO permission to decide to move the Australia Day to Robinson Park as an alternative venue, or, as you said, CEO can't call a meeting as an extraordinary meeting. Only councillors can have to do that in writing. It has to be a minimum of 2. So,
Well, I'm comfortable modifying my amendment to say that the CEO has the authority to decide to move Australia Day to Robertson Park as the alternative location. On that advice, I'll accept if that's possible to modify my amendment in that way. And thanks, Councillor McDonnell, for agreeing to that, because I think that resolves the concern. The CEO will obviously be taking advice from the staff there across the Orange City Flying Fox camp management plan and the considerations that we need to take into account. Thanks.
Would anyone else like to speak on the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're doing all this because of the bats. Let's not run away from the idea. I want to know, and we should be able to tell them because it's been thrown in our faces at the previous council meeting and it's been brought up here by Councillor Mallard, how many prosecutions have happened because of treatment of bats in New South Wales? You can even go across to Queensland. You can go wherever you want to go. Let's see who's been prosecuted for whatever the case may be. And how come we haven't had any problems with bats at previous meetings when the same thing has occurred, Australia Day has occurred? I'm not prepared to take things on notice with regards to this because we've had this discussion. This wasn't any part of what the case may be. You talk about the staff management plan of Cook Park. It doesn't say anything about disturbing the bats. It just said do best what you can. That's what it says. The law is not, no one's been prosecuted for it. The law doesn't say anything about that at all. The biggest threat to bats are goannas, eagles and the heat. In Sydney Council, they spent $500,000 putting lights and noise up in the trees. They stayed there. Squeaking noises, whatever the noise they want, they stayed there. They spent $500,000. They didn't go anywhere. Same thing here. Look, you've got there on Saturday, right? There on Saturday, there was about 4 Christmas parties there. We've had previously, as Councillor Greenhill says, there's been school photos there with hundreds and thousands of kids over the number of weekends. Thousands of kids, not hundreds of thousands, but they've been there and they've been making noise. The biggest noise in the park is the bats fighting amongst themselves. That's what the biggest noise is when you go up there now. You went up there today, there'd been lucky to be 200 or 300 bats there. and we're still a month away. And I don't agree with leaving the thing to the staff to make a decision. We made this decision. We said, hey, we're having Australia Day at Cook Park. As simple as that.
Councillor Whitten.
Just speaking against the amendment, Mr Mayor, because I think it's quite confusing, and I'll give my reasons. The original motion, as we as council referred back to the committee to ask their opinion about where they were going to hold the meeting. They've given us the answer. They're going to hold it in Cook Park. But what they have said, that they will continue to monitor the situation as well. So here we have council asking them, a committee, about what they want to do. They've put it into a recommendation that they too, as well as staff, will monitor the situation because it is within their terms of reference to run the Australia Day committee. And we are now going to take that off them. Right? We're now going to say that we already have staff doing it in the other motion, right? The CEO is going to run it and make a decision based on the safety of the community and the bats. The committee have also reiterated what from them as a committee that they too will continue to monitor the situation and make a decision on whether they have it in Cook Park. Why have committees if we're going to take away their power? It's just a recommendation to say that they're going to do what we're going to do, and that's just to monitor the situation. So this amendment is actually stripping the committee of a decision of that which they've chosen to put in. That they're going to monitor it. So
everyone's monitoring it.
Everyone's monitoring it.
Why can't you have committee and staff?
Well, we will effectively have that if you pass this motion, because we have another it's just the committee reaffirming to us as council that they're managing the situation as well. Pretty much.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It really is very simple. The committee will continue to monitor the situation, but that's the monitoring of the situation was the advice. And I've sat on this committee for two and a bit years now. We have not the expertise to monitor, but we are definitely heavily relying on the staff in relation to this. So the wording is there. Yes, the committee will continue to monitor, but that monitoring from us and I want to speak on behalf of all of us committee members that have been sitting there organising this from the day dot, come down to this point in time, we were just waiting and relying on the staff to say, come back to us, and then we will then make a decision.
You're speaking against the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Clarification, Mr Mayor. My point of clarification is to the acting CEO. Have the brass band been asked to move from Cook Park and play elsewhere?
You didn't have your hand up. Sorry, I missed that.
Have the brass band been asked to move from Cook Park to play elsewhere? Because they used to play every second or third Sunday, whatever the days were, in Cook Park. I'm wanting to know, have they received a letter or received notification? Have they been asked to move from Cook Park?
My understanding is that the normal activity of the brass band, they haven't received any notification or letter requesting them to move. They did that of their own volition.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, just obviously speaking for the amendment. It's completely irrelevant how many prosecutions have taken place. Legislation is legislation. You don't decide whether you're going to breach it or abide by it based on how many prosecutions there have been. It's just absurd. The other thing about listening to the community committees, I mean, I'm all for that, but I find it really interesting that 12 months ago, a community committee recommendation came to this council and they were soundly respected and disregarded regarding the Avery Cook Park master plan. So I just think the amendment makes it clear what the process is going to be in white, makes it nice and simple. We're not taking power away from the committee. Given that there's legislation, we're making sure that the responsibility lies with council staff and it's clear in black and white.
Put the motion.
I'll put the amendment first, sorry.
Amendment, that
I'll
one.
put the amendment. All those in favour? Sorry?
Which is?
We just read it out.
The amendment, through you, Mr. Chair, is that council staff continue to monitor the situation. Agreed, at Cook Park. And the second part of that motion was
that an extraordinary council meeting be called.
Agreed to modify that to say if anything changes to increase the risk of holding the event at Cook Park, then council resolves to give the CEO permission to decide to move Australia Day to Robertson Park as the alternative location.
Okay, I'll put the amendment first. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 3, 4, 5, 6. And defeated. The amendment becomes the motion.
No, the amendment is lost.
Amendment's lost. Sorry.
Doing well. That's great.
I'm so confused.
the amendment's lost. So all we have before council at the moment is
the recommendation.
Is the original recommendation.
Yes.
But that original recommendation gives the committee the power. So you would have to change that if you didn't want the committee to have the power to make the decision. You just had an amendment defeated. The CEO can't override a resolution of council, no. And you can monitor that on if there's a fire, you can certainly do that.
We just had an amendment to do that, and it got beat.
Yeah.
Because we already have a motion where the CEO is going to run the show.
But the committee will be.
The amendment could simply, a further amendment could simply be to remove point 2 of 3.3. And then 3.3 would just remain that the Australia Day activities for 2024 remain at Cook Park, and the prior resolution about the CEO making decisions.
I'm happy to move that amendment as the CEO's. Yeah, get this show on the road.
Any speakers? I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against?
Beautiful.
The amendment's carried. That becomes the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Wow. Francis? Call Councillor Whitten on stand to do the planning matters.
And bring it back.
How many people? Doesn't make...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll move on to item 5.3. Councillor Kinghorn is leaving the room due to a declaration of interest. We have recommendation on page 99. The recommendation is the council consent to the development application of DA 236-2023 for a warehouse distribution centre. The buildings lot 402. It's been moved by Councillor Hamling for approval. It's been seconded by Councillor Floyd. Any discussion? I've lost one audience member. No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? Motion unanimous. I will wait for Councillor Kinghorn to join us. Festive chamber. Alrighty, we have 5.4. The recommendations on page 144, and the council consented. Am I in the right lot? I don't think I've changed pages. All righty, recommendations on 144. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move an amendment, not an amendment to this. I'd like to move a separate motion that this matter be deferred. The reason why I'm saying deferral is...
You got a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Floyd.
The reason why I'm saying deferral is we're asking to change our LEP on heritage matters, specifically on one building. Now, there are heaps and heaps of heritage matters that are listed throughout Orange and are also on the State Heritage Register, which this one is actually there. What is the repercussions of that? What happens if that goes ahead? Again, I have a problem with changing the LEP just for one building. That doesn't add up with me at all.
All righty, we have a recommendation of deferral. I think Councillor Miletto, you were next. Sorry, I've been on that side, Councillor.
Maybe if the council would consider an amendment to that, and that be deferred. View of having a council briefing, so more in-depth understanding.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Duffy? Did you hear that request?
Briefing as well.
Yeah, well, he wants a briefing added to your deferral. You good with that? Second, good with that? You got your deferral, Councillor Miletto. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question through you to the staff. The strategy that's come to us is 2.5 years old. So I'm just wondering has it been with a heritage advisor that long, or has it just been sitting on a shelf somewhere?
Jono, would you do us the pleasure of...
It just seems a very long time to just sit there before coming before us.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify a couple of things there, the site is actually a local heritage item under Council's local environmental plan, and based on existing, when there's no proposal to change or amend the LEP as such, the local environmental plan has a number of heritage provisions included, and one in particular relates to conservation incentive provisions, whereby you have a local heritage item on the books. Council may consider, I guess, in some alternative land uses to those types of buildings, provided there's a conservation management plan or adopted conservation management strategy in place for a particular building. We had some ongoing discussions with the applicant, and the applicant has been working through, I guess, a number of different scenarios in this particular property. But before being able to formally, I guess, pursue an application for an alternative adaptive land use for that particular building, we must first have a conservation management strategy in place. The conservation management strategy looks to, I guess, do a number of things. It carries out, I guess, an assessment of the significance of the building itself. It then goes on and talks about the conservation principles and policies for implementation. It talks about the types of, I guess, ongoing management strategy for the building. For argument's sake, it could be dealing with tiles, it could be dealing with windows, it could be dealing with the material on the floor, etc., etc. But as part of it, it looks at what suitable alternative options might be available for a former church building, given a zone residential. And part of the conservation management strategy is about saying, okay, it's perhaps not appropriate to carve it up into perhaps an office as part of an adaptive reuse arrangement or something, rather a series of buildings, a series of walls that might split the former church building, but it might be more appropriate to continue to use it as a place for gathering, continue to use it for a place of entertainment for the community. And what they're seeking there is that we'll eventually have a amended development application that would potentially look to facilitate some sort of cafe or small function type facility that I guess council has the power to support, provided that there are I guess a series of management strategies that we can link and tie the operators into in terms of its ongoing conservation. So that's why that we've gone through the process. And yes, these guys prepared this document some time ago. They've been in consultation with staff. They've been in consultation with their own consultant about where that might go. And essentially, we've reviewed this particular document. We've had it reviewed by Council's Heritage Advisor. It's a sound document, provides some sound recommendations in relation to future consideration. This is the first stepping point to allow the applicants to proceed with their development application. And they're very anxious to move forward with the development application, for which council, that would be brought back before council for any alternative adaptive reuse of the building. So
it's been with the owner of the land for most of that time?
It's been toing and froing a little bit. They did originally have a proposal for a residential apartment that was linked to the building.
So it hasn't been sitting on staff. That's, I guess, what I was trying to understand is it hasn't been sitting here somewhere for 2.5 years before.
The application has been live for some time, but it's been toing and froing with the applicant. The applicant has had to go away and prepare these documents, prepare other documents, and they've now looked at, I guess, an alternative approach in order to assist them in preparing their application moving forward. It was appropriate to get council buy-in to the conservation management strategy that's been prepared to allow that to be considered in the future DA. The DA will still come before council. Council can support, not support, whatever they wish to do with it. But we'll be looking, if they're of the view to support this conservation management strategy, will ensure that there's conditions in any future adaptive reuse of that building that were linked to the conservation of the building.
Thank you.
I have a question now, Mr. Director. Conservation management strategy is being developed by us?
No, it's been commissioned by the applicant, so they've spent a lot of money on commissioning the strategy in the first place. But it's a document that under clause 510 of the local environment plan relating to heritage incentive provisions that they must have in place in order to allow them to, and the council, to consider these alternative uses for the building.
At the moment, we can't consider that strategy because of a policy.
No, the strategy, this is just a strategy that's aimed at identifying how this building will be managed into the future. And if council's comfortable with that, that facilitates, I guess, the preparation of the DA for an alternative adaptive reuse of that building.
So sort of the way I read some of these paragraphs is that they can't currently, their current DA wouldn't they can't submit their DA because our current LEP forbids it or could knock it back or...
The LEP clause, the incentive provision that they're relying upon, requires council to have a heritage management document or strategy in place for that particular building. So they're looking to, I guess, get that strategy in place to allow them to proceed with their development application. Without it, I guess they can't proceed with the preparation of the application in the manner that they'd like to put forward to council. So they spent a lot of money on this. They have a background of providing for tourism and I guess eating facilities. I think the owners of the property used to have the convent building out on Emery Road with the B&B, for example. They've sort of done that building up, so they've got runs on the board about being in the game about serious management of a heritage item. And this is just to facilitate the preparation of an application to bring before council. But it's an important element to use that clause.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Acting Director, for the explanations. Look, yeah, I think taking on board all of that information and having looked at the document itself, I'm comfortable with proceeding with endorsing this document. I think it's putting forward a sensible analysis of how you could conserve and look after an important building while authorising uses that would actually facilitate that and that would also be appropriate within the community. So I'm inclined, if I could move it as an amendment, I'll take advice from you, Mr. Chair, then I would move an amendment to proceed with the recommendation as written, or otherwise, if that needs to be a foreshadowed.
An amendment, sorry, Councillor Mallard.
Yep. So I'll move that amendment if I can get a seconder.
And seconded by Councillor Evans.
So yeah, I'm happy as the acting director has explained, we're not amending the LEP. We're not doing things that have implications for other properties. It's this property here that we're adopting this, and that this is a necessary step for them to be able to keep doing the work on a DA that's going to come through to us anyway. So yeah, I'm comfortable going ahead. Thanks.
I just had a point of just a question. Is that amendment allowed, or is it? It's not a direct negative, is it?
No.
Of Councillor
Because the original motion is a deferral.
And a briefing. Okay. Yep.
We've done
Thank
it
you.
as a foreshadowed motion otherwise.
Heads around.
Just
If we are opening a can of worms with all the other heritage stuff. Any further speakers? Okay, we have an amendment to, as the recommendation is written, we'll approve it. I'll deal with the amendment first if there's no other speakers. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hand. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Against is 1, 2, 3, 4. The amendment becomes a motion. Put the motion. All in favour of the motion? Against? 1. So, just to bring you all up the same page as me. So, the motion is as printed. That was successful, okay? The original motion to defer it was defeated. It was the amendment won. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to take this opportunity, thank you, Dono, to wish you all a Merry Christmas. It's been a great year. Next year will be even better. And thank you for your cooperation, and hope you all have a safe and joyous Christmas. And I look forward to getting your presents at the end of this meeting.
My presents.
Oh, and to the staff as well. My apologies for being, I was remiss. And to the hundreds of people in the audience, Merry Christmas.
Music.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. We'll move on to item 5.5, which is Wirraburra Walk lighting update. Councillors?
happy to move the motion.
Wait a second.
Okay, we went
One's
well.
in
We're about the
Christmas
same time.
mode.
Okay, woo! Jinx.
Yeah. Mode. So, do we have to make a decision on which one, Mr.
It's
Station is the
option 3 is
installation of
what's
the power.
recommended.
I'll move an amendment that we put in the solar lighting
Option 2.
option. Hang on. Option 1, isn't it?
Well, there's 1 and 2, both are solar. One has individual timers that will have to get adjusted.
I want 1.
The option 2 is one big box that controls all of them. The powered one, option 3.
Option 3. So I'd like to move an amendment for option 1.
Councillor McDonald, get a seconder.
Councillor McDonald, get a seconder. Councillor Peterson.
Oh, I was actually going to speak against the amendment, so better not second that.
I did. Councillor Duffy seconded mine.
What does that mean?
Okay.
I'd like to speak against the amendment for the original motion just because option 3 appeared to be the most cost efficient, least impactful addition to the walkway and not needing a big solar panel, so I'm supportive of the recommendation as it was originally written.
I'll speak for the amendment. I think option 1 will be the least impact. I think they're just the solar lights that we have down at Matthews Park, correct? Similar ones. I know that's what the original motion was, to put those sort of lights in. So I'll be speaking for option for the amendment. Yeah, I am, aren't I? Because I moved it. Yeah. Councillor Greenhalgh.
Can I just have a point of clarification? So option 1 is the original one. Option 2 is so we don't have to set 100 different timers. What's the different cost in option 1 and 2?
For the install, they're similar. The cost for the install. Is that the question?
Yeah. So like long term and maintenance for us to change the timers, option 2 would be the better.
Of the solar options, option 2 is the cheaper because you only change it at the box.
Yep.
Rather than at 100 individual or 80 individual lights twice a year. So that's about a $2,000 exercise to do that, based on an hourly rate.
Okay, so
whereas if you just changed it at controller one, it's just a one change.
Could I just ask a question then? So but option 2, you've got more infrastructure being down there.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. So you have the solar panel, and that quite is included in the report. So you'd have that about the midpoint of Wirrabara Walk.
And would you have to dig trenches and all that sort of thing?
There's excavation for all options. There would be a trench connecting all the lights for both options 2 and 3.
But none for option 1.
No, but option 1 would require individual
timers,
individual holes with concrete for every bollard.
Yeah. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A question first through you to the acting CEO. So we're still talking with options 2 or 3, the same bollard style light being installed, aren't we? So, in that case, I don't support the amendment, and I'm comfortable with option 3. The hassle of attempting to manage sensors on individual lights when we're talking about we wanted them to come on at times close to sunset, and they're going to need adjustment, and I can't see that being a practical way forward. I would be reasonably comfortable with option 2. I don't think it's a big disruption to have one pole with a solar panel and a battery box there, but I'm happy to go with the staff recommendation of the third option. We're not changing the amount of light or the intrusiveness of it, so the issues that we had residents concerned about, I don't see being affected by it. It lets us deal with things. The timer, I assume, can be dealt with just by, we'll need some sort of control panel installed somewhere that handles that, but it handles it for all the way along. So I think all of that is fine. I note the comment that our power procurement, we're on a 100% renewable contract. That's not, I think that gets oversimplified, and I am mindful of that doesn't mean electron for electron, that everything, if we're powering new things, we do need to be mindful that we're drawing on the grid, and we may be drawing on other things. But for this lighting, it's not a large amount. Like for things like the new Learn to Swim Centre, for trying to get the Civic Theatre to actually be net zero, that involves thinking about, a lot of technical stuff with the electricity, but I don't think this needs it. I think it's a straightforward enough approach to just connect into the network, and I think that will work fine. Thanks.
Any other speakers? Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be voting against this recommendation tonight. The original recommendation, I was against it before when it come to council, and my thoughts on this haven't changed at all, so I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Whitten. Sorry. I thought it was Malcolm Turnbull.
Does it to me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking for the amendment. Only for the simple reason is that we worked really hard to build, especially in the last council and this council, a policy around renewables, and this fits right into that policy, especially we've already got precedents with other parks where we're utilising the same infrastructure. Sure, we haven't probably got, I'm not sure about the sensors and those sorts of things, but here we're talking about connecting into the grid. So I would have thought that we would be promoting the fact that we're going to do 100% solar. So I'm going to stick with that The amendment with the solar. Yeah.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That's defeated. Recommendation. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Carried. I'll move on to item number 5.6, which is fees and charges amendments for Orange City Council Choices at Home Home Maintenance Service Fee Lawn Mowing. Moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any speakers?
Just a direct question to the acting CEO. This has nothing to do with the organisations that come in and assist ratepayers who have disabilities or aged care and all those type of things.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, it's a completely separate matter. No impact.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion all in. Oh, sorry, Councillor Leto.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just a point of order. Question to the acting CEO. I'm just wondering.
Point of clarification.
Sorry, point of clarification.
Not a point of order.
My apologies.
I was a bit worried there. I was thinking, hang on, what are we?
Trouble. I'm just wondering if whether I know it's going on exhibition for the 28 days, but there's an opportunity to consult organisations such as Boys to the Bush. I know that you were there the other day when we had a meeting with that organisation, and there were a couple of the councillors there as well, Councillor Kinghorn and yourself, Mr. Mayor, and I was quite moved by some of the excellent work that organisation does, and I know that they are looking for opportunities to engage in this type of activity, and I'm thinking it might be an ideal situation where council could form a relationship with Boys to the Bush, and there are, they would probably relish the opportunity to engage with the community and with an organisation such as Orange City Council. So I'm just wondering whether we can make that contact with Boys to the Bush and see whether we can work in with them somehow to help them along the path which they're trying to take.
Through the Chair, certainly the services that are provided to the users under this arrangement, typically through commercial enterprises and or businesses. So if in that circumstance Boys to the Bush wanted to set themselves up as providing this service, they could certainly participate in the program as a service provider under it. So that's 100% possible.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.7, fees and charge amendments, Orange Regional Museum touring exhibitions. By Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. Any speakers? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just wanted to say, this looks good that we're setting up this approach to try and take some of the great exhibitions that the museum does and offer them to be showcased in other parts around the place, and particularly the one that we've got the example there of Mullah Gilang Wiradjuri Stories of the Night Sky, which has won multiple awards now, and it's great work that was done by obviously the museum staff, but working with Doug Sutherland and other Wiradjuri knowledge holders as well. It would be fantastic that we're giving the opportunity for that to travel around Wiradjuri country and beyond. Thanks.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.8, Statement of Investments, November 2023 on page 307. Can I have a move by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any speakers? Being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.9, which is the Community Participation Plan on page 311, post-exhibition adoption. Can I have a mover?
Move that, Mr.
Thanks,
Mayor.
Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Power. Speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. 5.10, Strategic Policy Review, Grants and Donations on page 325.
Oh, sorry, I'll second it.
Thanks, Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Whitten. Any speakers? Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask, some questions about 6.2, which is on page 332. And that is, what is the rationale for Orange City Council awarding $12,000 for scholarships for a very particular course, which is the Graduate Certificate in Community Leadership and Resilience at a very specific institution, being CSU? So I want to know the history of that. Does the it have to be studied at the Orange CSU campus, which I think it probably would be if we were paying for it? And then two questions, basically to hear the opinion of other councillors. Would we consider maybe expanding it for other universities or for other education being done in Orange, such as TAFE course? The question, do we often get 12 applicants for that particular course? And if we weren't going to broaden it, would we consider putting the money back into the donations pool, and then people could just apply for that through the pool to make sure the money gets spent on donations if we don't happen to have 12 applicants apply for this particular course, particular uni? Otherwise, I think the $80,000 with the $2,500 cap gives at least 32 donations a year, which is great. Gives opportunity to make impact on a lot of different people and organisations invested in the.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the background to this program was that it was established in 2020 and it came from a proposal from Charles Sturt University and follows other models that have happened in other councils. So, for example, this program currently runs in Dubbo, and the purpose of the program is basically to go out to your community and to invite community leaders, community groups, people within our community that we would like to support in developing leadership skills, and therefore supporting that by actually providing the donations for the funding of 2 units under this this program, so that starts the micro sort of skill courses for them. I can report that we have not had one applicant to date for the scholarship, and nor have we actually gone out recently to the community to seek expressions of interest or encourage people to come and apply so we can fund that. So currently the program has funding for 10 students for 2 micro skill courses within this certificate, so that they actually get the 2 units is what we currently have in our program. The money doesn't get reinvested, so if it doesn't, as it reinvested back into the program, if we don't get any applicants, then the $12,000 just doesn't get spent, and then we go for the next year budget where we have the $12,000 ready for allocation. I did speak to Charles Sturt today and said, what could we do to properly promote the program better if you wanted to continue with it, and they've given us some good advice about potentially holding an information session for our community and letting people get some information about what are these micro-credentials, micro-skill courses, and then how they could be supported. That was the intention of the program.
I make an amendment then that money goes back into the pool, and if anyone still wants to apply, they can, but if not, it'll still be available for other donations.
I would second that.
Any speakers?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. It's on exhibition, so we just have to pick that comment up through the exhibition phase and bring it back to council for adoption.
So that wouldn't be an amendment. That'd be
part of the exhibition.
Yeah.
So we can certainly make note of that, councillor, to when
put that in the documents.
We bring that back to council to consider adoption.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be an amendment. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? So that's with that noting that other one.
Noted that change.
5.11 strategic policy review. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any speakers? Being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. We will now move into closed meeting. The Acting Chief Executive Officer will now advise the council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
I've had lots, Mr. Chair. I'll just run through them.
Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2020-21, in the opinion of the Acting Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred in Section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in confidential session of council meeting closed to the press and public for following reasons. Item 6.1, sale of 22 Elwyn Drive, Section 10A2's 2D2 2, information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council. On item 6.2, proposed easement through 73A Hill Street, section 10A2C, information that would be, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. And late item 6.3, New South Wales ALGWA Conference 2024, nominations for council attendance, section 10A2F for business matters affecting the security of council, councillors, council staff or council property. Can I have a mover and a second that we move into closed council? Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor McDonald. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We're missing a couple of councillors.